Welcome to Fields of Study from the Masonic Cancer Center. Today we sit down with Andrew Floeder, one of the recipients of the top abstract awards from this year's Masonic Cancer Center Symposium. Hello everyone and welcome to our next edition of Fields of Study. My name is Max Huber. I'm the Communications and Marketing Manager at the Masonic Cancer Center located at the University of Minnesota. In this series, we're sitting down with some of our researchers, faculty, staff, and our abstract winners from our symposium to learn more about them and to kind of see how people are adjusting to our new normal here in 2020. Today, I am joined by one of our abstract winners from our 2020 symposium, our research symposium, which we weren't actually able to hold in person. So normally our three abstract winners are able to get up on stage and present their findings. Wasn't able to happen as, again, we weren't able to meet in person, but Andrew Floeder is joining me today, and he is one of our three winners. Andrew, how are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I am doing just fine. I'm so glad that you're able to join me, and let's just dive right into it. You are in Dr. Balbo's lab, one of our great researchers with the Masonic Cancer Center, and you are one of our abstract winners. So tell us, if you would have gone up on stage and given this presentation, what would you have been presenting about?
Yeah, so currently I'm working on a really interesting project. It's focused on environmental exposures that could have a detrimental health effect in populations. So it's the DNA edictomics method of cod exposed to crude oil to identify any polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon biomarkers. So polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons are persistent carcinogenic environmental contaminants, and they're often introduced into aquatic ecosystems through offshore oil operations or natural gas extractions. So when organisms are exposed to pHs, it may have a detrimental effect on the marine life, like cod swimming around, and then also on human health through the consumption of these types of marine organisms.
Keep going.
Yeah, so my project really focused on identifying the DNA adducts in liver from Atlantic cod exposed to crude oil, and then using that as a biomarker for exposure to the effective PAHs.
It's super interesting. So you're studying the exposure that these cod are experiencing, and then in turn, someone were to eat one of these Atlantic cod, what might affect the human ecosystem?
Yes, because like theoretically, the pHs could stay in the fatty liver tissue of cod, and then as humans consume them, we can be exposed to the effects too.
Got it. And this is, Dr. Balbo's lab, School of Public Health. There's a lot of interesting research out there, and we have a number of our faculty and staff that are doing this at, whether it's tobacco, whether it's alcohol, charred meats, whatever. There are so many environmental factors that are just, sometimes people see them as part of our everyday life that could lead to a cancer diagnosis later on because of the alteration and manipulation that some of those can cause to a human cell.
Yeah, so in Dr. Balbo's lab at the Masonic Cancer Center, we really focus on projects that investigate the mechanism of how different exposures, whether it's like environmental, lifestyle, occupational, how these different exposures can lead to cancer.
That's super interesting. And let's take a step back. What, I don't know if when you were in fourth grade, you said, I want to be a researcher of cod, but what really drove you to go down this path in your career?
So I feel like I've always been a really curious and like competitive person, especially when it comes to science. So like, I feel like this has really been shown in my undergrad career at microbiology here at the U of M and like my current research. But I think it all centered around and focused when my dad was going through multiple sessions of cancer. I became really focused and engaged in a lot of cancer facts because I wanted to learn more about the disease. And that's when I found out that there's a lot of genetic factors that account for a proportion of the cancer disease risk, as well as environmental factors. So that really narrowed down my focus to specific environmental exposures that I wanted to look on and see how they play a role in cancer research in order to like improve the overall human health and find a connection between the two.
And what are some of the more interesting findings that you personally or in Dr. Balbo's lab have found? I mean, like you said, there's the genetic side, which sometimes is a little uncontrollable, but then there's this environmental side where there is some control in certain aspects that we have. And I bet you that there is some super interesting stuff that you guys have found out.
Yeah, so We developed a unique high-resolution liquid chromatography mass spectrometry DNA adductomic approach using a specific mass spectrometry machine to identify putative DNA adducts. So in my project, we found that there were 22 potential DNA adducts that were only found in the fish exposed to crude oil and not in the control fish that were not exposed to any crude oil. So we're really focusing right now on identifying these potential adducts further and being able to characterize the structure so they can be used as a biomarker for crude oil exposure.
And how do you do this study? I mean, do you go out there with a fishing pole and reel some fish in and do this test, or how does this work?
Yeah, so we're partnered with the Pampinen lab over at the University of Stavanger. So they actually did the sample collection of the Atlantic cod exposed to crude oil, and then we received the liver samples. We did a sample processing method and then developed the mass spectrometry method before running them on the machine and doing the data analysis.
Interesting. And for those that don't know about a mass spectrometer, these are super big, super expensive machines that really kind of get into the nitty gritty of what's going on. So talk about your experience with those.
Yeah, so this was actually my first time developing a method for a mass spectrometer. So we used a Lumos, which is a hybrid Orbitrap mass spectrometry machine. And the main methods that we focused on were an untargeted method and a targeted method. So an untargeted method is more like a broad screen to identify specific masses of compounds that are in your sample, while a targeted method is you already have an idea of what you're looking for, so you're able to go in with increased sensitivity to really narrow down and better quantify what's in your sample.
Interesting. And in terms of, Atlantic versus Pacific, is it just what's available, or is there more crude oil that's leaked into the ocean in certain parts of the world?
Well, so there's been thousands of tons of crude oil entering ocean ecosystems with oil spills and other problems happening in aquatic environments. So we focused on Atlantic cod because the University of Stavanger in Norway, Atlantic cod is one of their main exports, and it has a lot of cultural significance and economic importance to Norway. So that is one of the main areas of research that they're studying.
Got it. And speaking of Norway, I got to look over here at this whole thing because you are the recipient of the Torsk Kluben Fellowship for Minnesota residents for 2021. I'm going to read a little bit here. The Torsk Kluben, founded in 1933, is deeply interested in Norway and Norwegian-American history and relationships. Since shortly after World War II, the organization has supported the University of Minnesota graduate fellowships for Norwegian citizens, and more recently, Torsk Kluben has supported Minnesota residents who have an interest in or connection with Norway or its culture. So I'm guessing that the research that you're doing based on cod in Norway led you to this pretty prestigious fellowship.
Yeah, I was looking around one day on all the fellowships that were offered at the U, and I found this Torsk Kluben Fellowship, and I thought it fit perfectly with the research that we are working on right now. And when I was applying for it, I got to learn so much more about the importance of Atlantic cod and what it meant to the nation of Norway, and it really inspired me to get more involved in the research that I was doing, and it made it a lot more interesting to me. So I'm really excited to get to work more with this Atlantic cod and all my research.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things here is that the members who are a member of this guild get to meet on the first Saturday of every month when we do no longer have social distancing to enjoy a meal of boiled potatoes and torsk. And torsk, I had to look it up. I had no clue what it was, but it seems like it's some sort of cod dish. So you're doing this research on cod, but I hope you don't get too familiar with it because you're going to have to sit down and eat it.
Yeah.
But congratulations on that. That's a pretty awesome thing. And with this, this is something that you're going to be using towards furthering your education. What's next for you once you finish your PhD program? What's your plans after that?
Yeah, so I'm really excited to be completing my PhD here at the University of Minnesota School of Public Health. I just entered with an undergraduate degree, so I still have a little bit more to go. But I find all of the classes that I'm taking right now super interesting, like the occupational and environmental epidemiology or environmental health risk assessment. They're all classes that are directly related to what I'm researching right now. So I'm able to learn so much new information in these classes and through my mentorship with Dr. Balbo that I'm really able to focus and get more specific on projects that I'm working on. And then hopefully, as I finish up my PhD I'm able to go to more conferences and work on more international collaborations and present my research on a level that I haven't really had the opportunity to do in my undergraduate career.
That's great. And I mean, with all these Norway connections, could you see yourself doing a little study abroad over there and hanging out in Norway for a while?
Yeah, that'd be great. Once all these stay-at-home regulations lift, I would love to go to Norway and learn more about like the sample collection processes that happen over there, and just more about the research at the University of Stavanger.
Well, the next time we do one of these interviews, maybe it'll be from a boat in the middle of the ocean as your collection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a couple more questions. We're talking about this whole stay-at-home thing, and how has this affected you? I mean, we're not able to go into the actual university, a lot of us, and it's just different. A lot of us are working from home. So how has it affected you in the research that you're doing?
It's been pretty different for me. So I live alone, pretty close to the university campus, but it's hard when you work in a wet lab like we do, and we have to go in and conduct experiments. So when we're not allowed to go into lab, it's really shifted the focus of what our lab group is working on. So every day we have a daily Zoom check-in where we meet up with all of our lab members and we get to talk about the projects that we're working on. So we've been really focusing on building up a website for the Balbo Lab and doing a lot more grant writing and paper researching when this time is happening where we don't have access to run experiments in lab.
Well, I'm sure that you're excited to get back into the lab, continue the study and continue the research. But I always like to end the interviews like this. It's a loaded question, I know, but personally, professionally, whatever it might be, a lot of people are looking for something to give them hope. So I'm wondering, Andrew, what gives you hope?
I guess there are a couple things that give me hope with everything going on right now. I'm a big runner, so now that the weather is warming up and I'm able to go out and do my daily runs, it's been really lifting up my day. Getting to be able to go outside and just run by myself, it's been really nice. And then also, when you receive good news, like getting the Torsk Kluben fellowship, it kind of brightens your day knowing that like when this all blows over, I can still go back to lab and there are people out there who are willing to fund me and believe in the research that I'm working on. And it's just a nice feeling to have.
Yeah, it's great. And I look forward to the chance when you get to sit down with all of those other fellows and have that boiled potatoes and Torsk meal. So Andrew, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all the best. Your research is super interesting, and we will share some of the Balbo Lab information on the bottom of the screen here. So thank you, Andrew, and have a great day.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, we'll see everybody next time on our next edition of Fields of Study.